Welcome to When Marriage and Purpose
Collide,
the podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Cree Speaks Life.
Hi, I'm DJ, co-host of this podcast.
Hi, I'm Lucretia, co-host, and I am also a speaker, author, and purpose journey coach. I am passionate about helping single women of faith rediscover their purpose before the husband and blossom in their marriage. Why, you ask? Because there is purpose to attain, life worth living, and work needing to be done before inviting your future husband in your life. So I decided to bring my husband along to share a man's perspective. Men need encouragement and empowerment too.
Hi, this is DJ, your other host. If you're trying to figure out how to date with purpose, maybe you're single, desiring marriage, in a pause season, or even engaged, this podcast is what you need.
Go sit back, enjoy the convo we have on a daily basis.
Now, on to the episode.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Go play something else.
Yeah. So how important is this forgiveness and healing that you're going to talk about?
I think it's crucially important. It's tremendously important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important for everyone, even the people who believe that nothing is wrong with them, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much trauma that is hidden.
Mm-hmm.
There's stuff you don't even know that you're dealing with. Because we aren't crying, we aren't in tears, we aren't breaking down or falling apart, we believe we're good and we can function. But a lot of the times there's so much hidden trauma. There's so much that has happened in our past that has not yet been addressed or hasn't been addressed appropriately. And we need to come to a position of dealing with all of those things so that we can function more effectively in the world. And when we think about forgiveness there's so many layers to it that will help us to prepare for marriage.
Ooh, come on, layers. Let's go.
Layers. There are layers to forgiveness. Layers. So many layers. So First of all, we talk about the forgiveness of God. And we don't really say that God needs forgiveness because he's perfect. God is perfect. Everything he does is right. So he doesn't need forgiveness, but we need to address our heart position towards God, because if our heart position isn't right towards him, then that purpose relationship that we talked about in the beginning, about needing to have relationship with God, communion with God, that goes underneath and is the foundation of everything that we do, marriage and otherwise, if that relationship isn't right, then that will impact our marriage. That will impact our lives in general, completely. So it's so important for us to make sure that we come to a position of forgiving God. And that has to do with dealing with all of those disappointments, all the things that didn't work out, all the things you prayed for that never happened. And you were vexed with God and you were like, Lord, why didn't you bring this through? Why didn't this come through? Why didn't this happen for me? You know, in my own life, I had to deal with the unforgiveness towards God as it related to my son's diagnosis with autism. And I prayed about that and I didn't see the healing come, and that upset me. I was like, God, have you forgotten me? Have I done something wrong? What did I do to deserve this? And for many of us, even as we navigate that single season and we're looking to get into marriage and so on, we may be in a position of feeling like God has forgotten us or forsaken us. God, where's my partner that I prayed for every since? Why hasn't he shown up? Or she turned up? You can be upset with him about that. But if we don't address that relationship with God, and if we don't turn our eyes towards him and desire him more than anything else, that aspect of forgiveness can turn around and impact negatively the steps that we're trying to take and the relationship that we're trying to build with that potential spouse or that husband, that wife. So that's crucially important.
Yeah. Go ahead. Keep going. I had a question I was going to throw at you. Go ahead.
So I was just going to say that in addition to that, then there's also the layer of forgiving yourself. And that in itself is multi-layered as well, because that self-forgiveness impacts your sense of identity. If you don't forgive yourself for some of the things that have happened in your past, the things that you've done, that in a sense is a way of identifying yourself with that previous version of you and not reconciling with the version that God is creating. So every time you sit and you dwell in your self-judgment, every time you sit and you dwell in your unforgiveness towards yourself, every time you live in that regret and that shame and that hurt about what you did, you are reminding yourself and reinforcing the version of you that did all of that and not the version of you that God is creating. So there's a huge identity issue when you don't forgive yourself. And if you're not clear about who you are, you're also sometimes not clear about your worth. You're not clear about your value. You're not clear about your importance or your significance because you haven't dealt with the root of unforgiveness towards you on the inside of you. And when you address that, that helps you to have clarity about the identity that God is calling you to walk in. It helps you to accept who God says that you are. And because you accept who God says that you are now able to function knowing that I am worthy, I am valuable. I do not need to act. There's certain things that I will not accept because I know who I am. My identity is straight. Right. Yeah. So that's hugely important before you enter into marriage or consider marriage, to know what your identity is, to know who you are. And that self-forgiveness connects with that identity. And then it also connects for us in the area of how we operate and function in the relationship within itself. Because one of the things that God brought down for me which was hard to hear, but was so true, was that, because this was a big issue for me, this issue of self-forgiveness. And one of the things that he brought down for me was that when you don't forgive yourself, very often you walk into relationships anticipating that you will not be forgiven. You walk into relationships anticipating that you're going to be judged, anticipating that you're going to be punished. So when you do something wrong, that maybe reminds you of the person you were before or what you did before. If you fail that partner in some way, you may withdraw, you may step back, you may not fight as much as you would to maintain that relationship or to bring healing in that relationship, because in your mind you're thinking, I don't deserve to be forgiven. I deserve punishment. I deserve judgment. And that for me was an issue, because for me, I thought in some instances, I anticipated judgment. In some instances, I anticipated it where it didn't even exist. The forgiveness was there, but I couldn't accept it because I thought I didn't deserve it.
Wow.
So it's so layered. There's so much to it. And then we also have to forgive others, which takes us back to thinking about some of our insecurities, some of our self-doubt. A lot of these things, we may be walking around feeling fine. Nobody's hurt us recently. We're not crying tears. We're not broken apart about any major incident. But years ago, when you were a kid, somebody said something to you that caused a trauma that now shows up in your life, in the way you act and the way you present yourself. And until you are able to see that root and forgive that person and identify that this is causing me to show up in the way I show up right now, then that continues to be an issue. So we have to really be able to peel back the layers of ourselves, open ourselves to God, ask him to show us, Lord, where are the things that I've been through? Where are the areas that I need to forgive somebody? You know, there are a few traumas I talk about in my book about some of my experiences of the past that led me to be in a position of insecurity, that led me to be in a position of self-doubt, that led me to be in a position of questioning my own worth. And until I could go back and peel back those layers and deal with those things and forgive those people, I still would struggle to move past that insecurity, that self-doubt, all of that. So there's so much to it. I could talk about this forever.
It's good.
And it is so critically important that we take that introspective look and that we invite God into the process and that we say, God, show me where I need to forgive. All the layers, you, me, others, wherever it shows up, show me. Yeah.
That is so good. I like how you wrapped it up to where it's telling folks, like, now that you know the areas of where God, myself, and others, show me God. Like, what do I need? What's in myself? I was speaking to, usually I speak to a lot of women who I, potentially can coach, and I do coach, and they do talk about often, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what's going on? And how do I get to know me better? And it's more so tapping back into you. Like, when is the last time you asked God to really seep down inside of you and pull out those wrong things? Pull out everything that, because we could go all day on the stuff that surfaced about us. Okay, I don't like the way I put my makeup on. Okay, good. I don't like the way I did this, or whatever it may be. That's surface, but you got to dig deeper into that thing. And especially before you even enter into a relationship. We could talk about dating, we could talk about marriage, but even just the thought of just going back out there. You got people who are saying, I want to date with intention, I want to date with purpose. But how can you be intentional if you're not intentionally doing what deal with you?
Precisely. And you have to intentionally seek that healing so that when that mate comes along, you've prepared yourself. You've prepared, you've gotten ready, right?
Yeah. And I think when you said even the first about forgiving God, like, like just forgiving, like, that's huge, because a lot of people, and you might have experienced it yourself, we're dealing with a day and age where I'm seeing a lot of people leave the faith, leave church.
It's true.
Leave the faith. And in some cases, I'm meeting Christians who are just wavering, who are kind of testing the waters, who they say, I'm still a Christian, but I don't know. I want to do, I want to still live my life, but I'm still going to church whenever I want to. I'm a community thing. I don't know about all that, but it's wavering because of, and it all goes back to, from what I'm hearing, is the relationship. Something there is blocking you from allowing God to rescue you.
Exactly.
Like, and you are worthy to be rescued, no matter where you are, no matter what shame or whatever it is, you're worthy to be rescued. And I think what happens is it's the humility, it's the pride that steps in, because I don't gotta be, I can do this on my own.
I got it together.
I got it together. Let me just go ahead and read this book, and I'm good. It could be some other book out there off the shelf. Let me go speak to someone who knows me more, or whatever, when you really just gotta just sit at the feet of our Father.
Of Jesus, exactly.
Yeah.
Because he has all the answers. Yeah. And in the first, I think it's the first few chapters of my book, I actually invite the readers to go through a process where we examine ourselves first. Because
come on.
A lot of the times when we think about forgiveness, our first thought is, who did me wrong that I need to forgive? I got a grudge, right?
That's the first thought. Yeah.
That's our first thought. But in this book, I invite people to sit first and to think about where we have gone wrong, to do our own self-examination. Because if we recognize that we need forgiveness from God to begin with, that then helps us to address the forgiveness to everyone else.
Sure.
All right, good.
Because I can keep talking.
I know.
You gotta cut me off.
It might be profound. It might be far left. Who knows? But anyway, so I'm gonna step back. I'll come back around. So when I read your bio, what caught my eye was the fact that you put that you was rescued.
Yes, for sure.
I was like, where's she rescued from? And hearing what you were saying, that's the far left part. It reminded me back to the movie we were just talking about.
Oh, goodness.
The only reason I say that is the art part of it. How us as just human beings, we always put a timeline on that certain time span of our lives, like our young age, teenage, adult years. We always put like a little time block in there, and we either forget about it or we just we stuck to it. But it kind of brings up if it was art, what would that look like? And I was sitting there thinking, if it was like a blank canvas, it wouldn't be white, it would be all black. Because of all the despair and everything you went through. And in that, you're thinking, okay, so it's supposed to be white. The God's supposed to be on that side, and then black kind of represents evil, just all the wrongdoings, unforgiveness, all that. And you're thinking God's not in that, but he's been there the whole time. And once you found a way to not only forgive yourself, but forgive him, a light opened up in that darkness.
Wow.
Yes.
But not only did you find that, it kind of put a spotlight on other things you need to forgive in order to get out of that darkness. But instead of you just forgetting it like everybody forgets the time span, you start opening up doors for everybody else, especially what you're doing with the book. Sorry, excuse me. So now you're reaching back and trying to help people get out of their darkness, trying to show them spotlights of what, they need to forgive or what they need to get through in order to get out of there.
Sure.
But the thing is, you're showing how God showed you by forgiving him. So now you're trying to basically use the tools that he just gave you to show other people.
That's
it.
And that's how
That's definitely it.
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking that the whole time. I was
No,
like,
that's
okay,
good.
I'm hearing more.
And it's amazing because it just shows us how good God is and how he turns things around for his glory in spite of how bad and how dark and how hard it might be.
Sure.
And we go through things in life sometimes that we wish maybe, sometimes you might I wish that never happened. That's, but I found, like I was saying before, I found that having gone through everything, I might think that for a moment, but then I say, no, I am glad, even though it hurt, even though it was tough, even though things, I might have desired a different outcome or a different way of things happening. In the end, it's given birth to something that can help somebody else. In the end, it's given birth to something that can save somebody else's situation, their life, turn their life around, so I think that there is so much beauty, that canvas that you were talking about, there's so much beauty even in those dark spots because God, he's there the whole time, like you said, he's there the whole time with us. And he was with me the whole time in this whole situation, and everything that I went through, he was with me. And I really believe that he had purpose in all of it. Purpose was in and underlying all that I went through.
No, and that's key. And I think that's where to come back to those who are in the dark spaces, who are thinking about leaving the faith or leaving whatever because of what was done to them. Like they did me this way. Like I don't feel this, or where is God? I don't even know where it is. Like, why do I believe in God? Why do I believe in Jesus? Is it really like all these things come up because of what you allow to kind of come in? But a lot of times just saying, God, I doubt right now. I'm just insecure. I don't even know what to do. Like, I think sometimes we feel like we can't just have a true, genuine
conversation with God.
We think
I talk about that too.
Oh, do you?
In the book. Okay. I do talk about that. And I talk about the fact that he desires a contrite heart. If we open ourselves to him and we let him see those broken pieces of us, he will do the work. Sometimes we hide certain things away from God. It's like we think that it's too much for him, or he can't handle our anger. We think he can't handle our pain. He can't handle our disappointment. Or we may feel embarrassed to admit that that's how we feel towards God. So we never bring it up in prayer. We never mention it to anyone to help us get through. But if we open those things up to him, he can begin the healing work. But we have to open ourselves. We have to allow him to do that work.
That's it. And you mentioned something earlier about the trust. And I believe it's something you said you dealt with yourself with self-identity within your marriage. And like a lot of times we don't recognize, like, I know for me and myself, there's a lot of things that I wish I should have worked on. Like I didn't know to work on it until I got married. And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should have oops, like kind of, but because I didn't now, and this is the reason why I love coaching women now in their season and men who listen to us, because I know what I didn't get and what I needed and where my heart should have been before, so that our first year, not that it was rough, like so rough to where it was just like I didn't know me and I didn't know the level of me, and I was still evolving, and I had to go back to the past again. I had to go back to, oh, why am I feeling? Oh yeah, And so, and I talk about it on our last season, but I went through therapy. I'm still going through therapy, but this year is when I started, or last year is when I started. But it's some things that she brought up to me that I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh my goodness, like, that was before we even was a thing. Like, there was some stuff that was still that I had to really dig up in myself. And so it's so important to do that now, to ask those rough questions and ask those hard questions to yourself, and to God, and to be like, God, what do you need for me to be? Like you said, am I truly have I forgiven myself? And in some parts I didn't, in some parts I didn't, and I didn't forgive others. And so it came up later. But now, I mean, it's still a process. It's not an easy process, It's still a process. And I know we talked about it before, even in your case with some of the stuff you got going on, with forgiveness. Like, it's just a lot that we didn't know until later. And now we're both working with it together. Like, I'm saying, I'm seeing some things in him, and I'm like, oh, maybe some forgiveness stuff in there. Oh, you think?
Yeah, marriage tends to do that. Marriage has this way of showing you yourself in the mirror, and then you're like, I didn't know that part of me, but thanks for letting me know, So yeah, it does tend to do that.
Yeah. And it's not saying that you have to, and I think sometimes they're like, oh, so I gotta be fully perfect, before, like, so when I do the forgiveness, that means I'm just totally forget everything. Like, it's still a process,
Definitely.
and like we're continuously, like we have to do that. Like, that's why there's new mercies every day. That's why we have to keep, because our minds just be out here. And
it's so true. It's so true. They definitely, we need those new mercies, because it's a process. This whole forgiveness thing, all of the elements of it, the self, God, others, it is a continual process. And the thing is that life continues to happen. Things continue to happen. People continue to hurt you. You continue sometimes to make mistakes and get things wrong. And so we have to continually be in that position of saying, God, show me where I need to forgive. Show me where I need to address this, so that it doesn't remain as an issue within us.
No, that's so good. So that's good. So you kind of touched on it already. Was I was listening to your 14-day forgiveness fast. It was so amazing. First of all, you did. I was listening to the video. I'm like, I was almost binge watching. Like,
really?
So good. But you talked about the forgiveness of self, and when we want to sustain longevity, access growth, and progress, we need to overcome unforgiveness and to see the transformation. And we kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's like, what strategy would you give our listeners? Like, right now they're listening to you and they're like, okay, I want to start this journey practically. How would someone start today to say, I want to start this journey? Of course, getting your book to rescue them, but also, like, where can they're sitting there like, okay, I know there's something inside of me. Like, how do I do this? She's doing so, like, I don't know how to do this. So where should they start? Where would you tell them to? Yeah.
I think a part of the answer to the question is in the question itself, which is that word strategy.
Okay.
Because strategy is something that I've been really pondering on over the last maybe year or two.
Oh, okay.
And the fact that so often in our Christian walk, we receive word, we hear the word, we read the word, but then sometimes we don't implement strategy to help us apply the word to our lives and actually do what it says. So then we find ourselves getting stuck in cycles and staying in the same place and revisiting the same issue over and over again, not seeing the growth that we want, not seeing the progress, because although we know what we need to do, we haven't implemented a strategy. And that word strategy for me is key to how we get the transformation and how we get to that point of change. And the first thing that came to mind was definitely we have to start with the relationship with God. getting in the right place with him, making sure that we're hearing from him, first of all, because he is going to be the one to direct and guide and tell us, like, just like you were just saying, God, what are those things in me that I need to deal with? What are those issues that I have? Can you show me? Can you explain? Can you open these things to me and tell me why and how it came to be this way? And we will find that God will speak. And he will show us those areas that we need to work on and address. But in addition to that, we have to also do some work ourselves. So we have to be doing things like you just mentioned, therapy. Sometimes we need to go to therapy to unfold some of the mysteries of why we are the way we are. And some of those past traumas that we even forgot about that have affected the way how we are functioning right now. Some of those things we need to talk through with a therapist or a licensed counselor to process and to really address those issues. So I think that therapy is an important part of our strategy there. And then we also have to be really intentional. I think we have to be really, really intentional. And when I say intentional, I mean doing a self-check. Continually self-checking ourselves, checking our thoughts. What are we thinking about ourselves, about others around us? Continually checking our intentions. Why are we doing what we are doing? Continually checking our behavior, what those things are. We have to be continually checking ourselves when we interact with an opportunity or a situation. How do we respond? Do we just respond instantly, or do we give ourselves a check and say, all right, let me check myself first, because I don't want to respond out of my trauma. I don't want to respond out of my hurt. I don't want to respond out of my insecurity, out of my shame, out of my regret. That's not how I want to respond. I want to respond as a healed person. So I think we have to check ourselves sometimes and say, okay, this is a situation where I might respond in my hurt, but I need not to do that here. Let me do the opposite. And then I think we also have to commit to the process. Just like you mentioned earlier, it is a process. It's not overnight. I'm still working on forgiveness in some areas, even though I've written a book on it. You know, it's like, it's a continual thing. You're always working on it. You're always trying to improve and to get better. And I think we really have to be strategic and say to ourselves, this is what I'm going to commit to do. I'm going to commit to go to therapy. I'm going to commit to checking myself. I'm going to commit to the process of it all. And I think that will help us to achieve that transformation.
Oh, wow. That's good. I think you gave us some nuggets that you blessed me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, us. I always give you, you blessed us.
I'm here
for real.
too.
I know.
I may be quiet, but I'm here.
You be thinking. You came out with that canvas.
Hey.
Yeah, you bless us so much. So listen, so how can people get connected with you, what you're doing? Is there any special offers you have for our listeners on today? Yeah, let us know.
So first of all, I have a freebie for everybody that's listening. So my book called Rescue Me, the Lifeline of Forgiveness. When I launched it in March of this year, I did an event called the Forgiveness Fast. So it was an online 14-day time of prayer and fasting. And it's still available. There is a PDF that you can download and you can follow that every day, and you can also access those videos. So you just go to www.therescuelifeline.com and there is a tab called the Forgiveness Fast. You click on that, you put in your email, and you get the PDF download as well as the list of all the videos and the links to all those videos that you can go back and access. So that Forgiveness Fast is based on the book. And the book is available on Amazon for anyone who is interested in purchasing a copy. It's available there on Amazon, and there are links to the book and everything on our website. And in terms of my ministry to women, if you're interested in looking at The Precious Project, it's The Precious Project BB on Instagram and Facebook as well. So you can check me out there and you can reach out.
That is amazing.
I like it.
Yeah, I can't wait to tap in and to get that. And yes, y'all go get it. Like we just talked about the practical steps of how you can start this journey of forgiveness. If you're like, I don't know, like she just gave you the 14-day.
Gave you the strategy.
The start off of the strategy that you can start applying today, okay, in your life to get this forgiveness journey and healing at least started for your life, right? And then go ahead and get the book and accompany that with yourself so that you can continue your journey of forgiveness. So I just thank you so much, Jewel.
You're welcome.
This has been
This was
great.
awesome.
Yes, this is great. We had fun. First
Yes, we
guest.
did.
Woo woo.
Yeah.
All right. Well, y'all be great. Y'all be grand. Y'all be blessed. We'll be back for another episode.
Oh.
See y'all. See y'all later. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to When Marriage and Purpose Collide, the podcast, with your hosts, DJ and Lucretia. And we hope you enjoyed our conversation and advice. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch the latest, you can follow Lucretia M. Haley, that's Lucretia M. Haley, on Instagram, and subscribe to Cree Speaks Life on YouTube. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.